Chapter 18. A minute later they were out in the open, standing on the very top of the peach, near the stem, blinking their eyes, the strong sunlight peering nervously around them. What happened? Where are we? But this is impossible. Unbelievable. Terrible. I told you we were bobbing up and down, the ladybug said. We're in the middle of the sea, cried James. And indeed they were. A strong current and high wind had carried the peach so quickly away from the shore that already the land was out of sight. All around them was a vast black ocean, deep and hungry. Little waves were bibbling against the sides of the peach. But how did that happen? They cried. Where are the fields? And where are the woods? Where is England? Nobody, not even James, could understand how in the world a thing like this could have come about. Ladies and gentlemen, said the old grasshopper, trying hard to keep the fear and disappointment out of his voice. I'm afraid that we find ourselves in a rather awkward situation. Awkward, cried the earthworm. My dear old grasshopper, we are finished. Every one of us is about to perish. I may be blind, but I know that much I can see quite clearly. Off with my boots, shouted the centipede. I cannot swim with my boots on. I can't swim, cried the ladybug. Nor can I, wailed the glowworm. Nor I, Miss Spider. None of us three girls can swim a single stroke. But you won't have to swim, said James calmly. We are floating beautifully, and sooner or later a ship is bound to come along and pick us up. They all stared at him in amazement. Are you quite sure that we are not sinking? The ladybug asked. Of course I'm sure, answered James. Go and look for yourselves. They all ran to the side of the peach and peered down at the water. The boy is quite right, the old green grasshopper said. We are floating beautifully. Now we must all sit down and keep perfectly calm. Everything will be all right in the end. What absolute nonsense, cried the earthworm. Nothing is ever all quite right in the end. And you know it. Poor earthworm, said the ladybug, whispering to James' ear. He loves to make everything into a disaster. He hates to be happy. He is only happy when he's gloomy. Now, isn't that odd? But then I suppose just being an earthworm is enough to make a person pretty gloomy. Don't you agree? If the peach is not going to sink, the earthworm was saying, if we are not going to be drowned, and every one of us is going to starve to death instead. Do you realize that? We haven't a thing to eat since yesterday morning. By golly, he's right, cried the centipede. For once the earthworm is right. Of course I'm right, the earthworm said. And we're not likely to find anything around here either. We shall get thinner and thinner, and thirstier, and we shall all die, and slow and gristly die a slow, gristly death from starvation. I'm dying already. I am slowly shriveling up for want of food. Personally, I would rather drown. But good heavens, we must be blind, said James. You know very well I'm blind, snapped the earthworm. There's no need to rub it in. I don't mean that, James said quickly. I'm sorry, but can't you see that? See, shouted the poor earthworm. How can I see if I am blind? James took a deep breath, a slow, deep breath. Can't you realize, he said patiently, that we have enough food here to last us for weeks and weeks? Where? They said, where? Why, the Peach, of course. Our whole ship is made out of food. Jumping Jehoshaphat, they cried. We never thought of that. My dear James, said the old green grasshopper, laying a front leg affectionately on James' shoulder. I don't know what we'd do without you. You're ever so clever. Ladies and gentlemen, we are saved again. We are most certainly not, said the earthworm. You must be crazy. You can't eat the ship, the only thing that's keeping us up. We shall starve if we don't, said the centipede, and we shall drown if we do, cried the earthworm. Oh dear, the old green grasshopper said. Now we're worse off than ever. Couldn't we eat a little bit of it? Asked Miss Spider. Said, I'm so dreadfully hungry. You can eat all you want, James answered. It would take us weeks and weeks to make any sort of dent in this enormous peach. Surely you can see that. Good heavens, he's right again, cried the old grasshopper, clapping his hands. It would take weeks and weeks, and of course it would, but let's not go making a lot of holes all over the deck. I think we'd better simply scoop it out of that tunnel over there, the one that we've just come up by. An excellent idea, said the ladybug. What are you looking so worried about, earthworm? Centipede said. What's the problem? The problem is that there is no problem. Everyone burst out laughing. Cheer up, earthworm, they said. Come and eat. And they all went over to the tunnel entrance and began scooping out great chunks of juicy, golden-colored peach flesh. Oh, marvelous, said the centipede, stuffing it into his mouth. Delicious, said the old green grasshopper. Just fabulous, said the glowworm. Oh my, said the ladybug primly. What a heavenly taste. She looked up at James and she smiled, and James smiled back at her. They sat down on the deck together, both of them chewing away happily. You know, James, said the ladybug, up until this moment, I never in my life tasted anything except those little tiny green flies they have on the rose bushes, and they have a perfectly delightful flavor. But this peach is even better. Isn't it glorious? Miss Spider said, coming over to join them. Personally, I have always thought that big, juicy, caught-in-the-web blue bottle was the finest dinner in all the world until I tasted this. What a flavor, the centipede cried. It's terrific. There's nothing like it. There never has been. And I should know because I personally tasted all the finest foods in the world. Whereupon the centipede opened his mouth full of peach and juice running down all over it and suddenly burst into song. I have eaten many strange and scrumptious dishes in my time, like jellied gnats and dandy prats and earwigs cooked in slime, and mice with rice. They're really nice when roasted in their prime, but don't forget to sprinkle them with just a pinch of grime. I've eaten fresh mud burgers by the greatest cooks there are, scrambled dregs and stink bug eggs, and hornets stewed in tar, and pails of snails and lizard tails and beetles by the jar. A beetle is improved by just a splash of vinegar. I often eat boiled slabbages. They're grand when served beside mint doodlebugs and curried slugs, and have you ever tried mosquito toes and womp fish roes, and most delectably fried? Only trouble with is they disagree with my inside. I'm mad for a crispy wasp sting on piece of buttered toast, pickled spines of porcupines, then a gorgeous roast, a dragon flesh, well hung, not fresh. It costs $1 at most, and comes to you in barrels if you order it by post. I crave the tasty tentacles of octopi for tea. Like hot dogs, I love hot frogs, and surely you'll agree. A plate of soil with engine oil, a super recipe. I hardly need to mention that it's practically free. For dinner on my birthday, shall I tell you what I chose? Hot noodles made from poodles on a slice of garden hose, and a rather smelly jellyfish made of armadillo toes. The jelly is delicious, but you have to hold your nose. Now comes the centipede, declared the burden of my speech. These foods are rare beyond compare, some right out of reach. But there's no doubt I'd go without a million plates of each for one tiny bite of this fantastic peach. Everyone was feeling happy now. The sun was shining brightly out of the soft blue sky, and the day was calm. The giant peach, with sunlight glinting on its side, was like a massive golden ball sailing upon a silver sea.